Acquiring a customer has a cost. The cost is advertising, the cost is marketing, the cost is your location in the mall, or the cost is your location on the shelf. The acquisition of a customer is a challenge. And that's something that we have courses on that talk about how to acquire customers. And it's an art and it's a science, and you combine the two and you get skill and you get a craft. And one of the things that's interesting is to calculate what is the cost of acquiring a customer. People will go to a trade show. This is a great example. They go to a trade show and they'll expect to come out of the trade show with transactions. First of all, in most cases, transactions don't actually occur at the trade show unless you're selling something to consumers. So it's a B2C type of situation. But on a B2B, a buyer will come through. They'll look at the product. They'll talk to the vendor or the supplier. They'll get the specification sheet. They'll take it back and they'll think about it. They'll pass it by their customers, let their customers review it, or they'll pass it up the chain within their own organization to do it. So you don't walk away with purchase orders in your pocket. The key is to walk away with business cards and to walk away with email addresses and contact information and a personal relationship. And we have a course specifically designed for trade shows, and we'll talk about that. But this slide illustrates the importance of the cost and calculating the cost of customer acquisition. And then when you compare that cost of acquisition with what it takes to keep a customer, that's something, again, every business needs to do. And when you make a decision to participate in a trade show or to put an advertisement in a magazine or to hire another employee, these are all costs that you have to calculate. So this example here has a standard trade show with a total budget of about $48,000. And you may go, wow, that's a lot. It is. And that's one of the challenges is that, you have to buy booth space. And booth spaces can be anywhere from $5,000 on up, depending on what you get. Obviously, the more traffic the show has, the bigger the booth, the more expensive it's going to be. The smaller shows, they have cheap booths, but you also have a smaller audience. Doesn't mean that it's a bad audience. I went to one trade show in Dubai that was very small, but it was a very specialized show. It was organic products, and there were a lot of booths, and there were a few buyers, but those buyers were, in fact, true buyers. They were there to find new suppliers and develop relationships. So we didn't have a lot of looky-loos. We didn't have people kicking the cans or sampling the product just for the fact of sampling the product, but they were actually looking to buy or looking to establish a relationship. So the size of the show isn't always the key factor. It's the target audience. Who is the audience that's going to be at that show? So we calculated in this a $48,000 expense. And that includes the booth space, and it includes travel, hotels, flights, meals. What is the per diem? How much is it going to cost to get from the hotel to the venue? I've worked with USAID and other agencies where they make sure you get the cheapest hotel. And then you spend more money paying for an Uber or more time taking a train or something else to get to the venue. In fact, in Ethiopia or in Dubai, with a delegation from Ethiopia, there was an event that started at 7 o'clock in the morning. We were going to serve coffee to buyers. The buyers were there. My team was there. The Ethiopians didn't show up. They didn't show up. And finally, at 9 o'clock, they came strolling in. They said, oh, our train broke down. Well, we were in Germany. Trains don't break down very often in Germany. But they had gotten a cheaper hotel. They were farther away from the show. And that caused problems. And it could cost money. So you also have to look at what is the trade-off of the hotel costs and your time. So you got to include that. You got to include if you're going to give out samples. If not only samples that you're going to give out, but samples that you have in your booth to show people and illustrate it. And we'll talk about in some of the other courses about how to minimize your cost of those samples and what is the value of giving out samples. Then you have labor, and that's one thing. Labor is a sunk cost in most situations. You're not hiring outside people. It is your staff. But what is your staff going to be doing that they are not going to be doing that they would otherwise have been doing? So there is a cost of your labor to be there. They're foregoing other opportunities and developing relationships, etc. So you have to consider the labor cost. You have to consider any advertising, a pay-per-click campaign. In one situation in a trade show down in Las Vegas, we put a digital fence around a trade show so that when people looked up on their phone, we knew where they were at, we knew what they were looking at, and we were able to hit our ads right to them. So there's a lot of costs associated with the show. So if you go to a show, you figure out how many customers am I going to get? Am I going to get 10 customers? Am I going to get 50 customers? Am I going to get 100 customers? And again, we're talking primarily B2B, not B2C. B2C, it's totally different. Customer has to feel it, has to taste it, has to do it. And they may be able to make a decision right there, but they're not going to buy volumes, not going to be repeat customers. So the fewer customers that you're going to get will be for a trade show that is targeted toward wholesalers or distributors that are bringing in product that They will then resell, and those customers are your customers, but they have their own customers that have to make decisions. They have to see the product. They have to taste it. So you have to get samples that go to their customers for them to take a look at. There are other trade shows, for example, a show where I'm selling equipment at a wine show, for example, and there's several thousand wineries that are coming through there. I can count on getting business cards from maybe 50 people that are interested. Not 50 customers, but 50 business cards. And then a wine to consumer or a business to consumer B2C, you'll get more customers from that. So if you take the $48,000 and you divide it by the cost of the customer, so $48,000 and 10 customers because you're getting 10 distributors, that's $4,800 per distributor. Is it worth it? And in that situation, once it's worth it, is it worth keeping them? How much do you need to spend to retain them? What do you need to do to keep them happy? And that's something you need to think about. So you need to do the math and figure out what is your cost per customer, and then figure out, is this show, is this effort, is this marketing campaign or whatever worth our time?